Revelation chapter 10, page 1206 in the scriptures. As of the time of this recording, it is 6:25 in the morning. I've only been awake for about 3.5 hours thus far, studying and drinking coffee in a little cabin in North Dakota. Praise Yah. Revelation chapter 10. It's only 11 verses. And yet we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cross references. So, more than one biblical proof text per verse. Buckle up. So, for context now, remember, and if you haven't read Revelation chapter 9 or watched the Revelation chapter 9 video, remember now that the 7 seals have been opened by the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world, Yeshua. And now there's 7 trumpets going off. And in Revelation chapter 9, the 6th trumpet with the 6th messenger has blown. And we have a huge army of 200 million, and a third of mankind was killed by these 3 plagues, and smoke and fire and bad stuff is going on. The wheat is being separated from the chaff at this point. Now there's a pause in between the 6th trumpet of Revelation chapter 9 and the 7th trumpet. And during this pause, right here, we have Revelation chapter 10. And so John is in the midst of this vision that he's having. And he's trying to understand everything that's going on. And I've said repeatedly, if you do not understand the Old Testament, you will not understand the New Testament, let alone Revelation. Revelation is chock full of this prophetic imagery that came before John. John is almost having an amalgamation of experience of all the major and minor prophets and all the teachings of the Torah and prophecy of Yeshua and instruction of Yeshua, which, by the way, was Torah. Torah and Proverbs and Psalms, so the Old Testament. The scriptures, as it's referred to, the Old Testament. Because think about when Yeshua was walking the earth with his apostles. When they said the scriptures were holy, what were they talking about? There were no epistles, right? There were no gospels, hadn't been written yet. So, but I digress. So, what we see in Revelation chapter 10 is this massive amalgamation of prophetic imagery. So, starting in Revelation 10, verse 1, and I, John, Yochanan, saw another strong messenger, like a chief angel, an archangel. And we're going to see exactly who that is in a moment. Coming down from the heaven. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to read all of this, and then we're going to go back, because it's so chock full that if we stutter step this thing, it will make no sense at all. So I will read 11 verses, and then we'll come back and start over again. And I, Yochanan, John, saw another strong messenger coming down from the heaven, robed in a cloud and a rainbow on his head, and his face was like the sun, and his feet like a column of fire. And having in his hand a little book, or a scroll, opened. And he placed his right foot, this chief messenger, placed his right foot on the sea, and his left foot on the land, and cried out with a loud voice as when a lion roars. And when he cried out, 7 thunders spoke their sounds. And when the 7 thunders spoke their sounds, I was about to write. But I heard a voice from the heavens saying to me, seal up the 7 thunders spoke, and do not write them. And the messenger whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land lifted up his right hand to the heaven, and swore by him who lives forever and ever, Yahweh, who created the heaven and what is in it, and the earth and what is in it, and the sea and what is in it, that there shall be no further delay. But in the days of the sounding of the 7th messenger, when he is about to sound, the secret of Elohim shall also be ended, as he declared to his servants the prophets. And the voice which I heard out of the heavens spoke to me again and said, Go, take the little book which is open in the hand of the messenger, standing on the sea and on the earth. And I went to the messenger and said to him, Give me the little book. And he said to me, Take it and eat it. And it shall make your stomach bitter, but it shall be as sweet as honey in your mouth. And I took the little book out of the messenger's hand and ate it, and it was as sweet as honey in my mouth. But when I had eaten it, my stomach was made bitter. And he said to me, You have to prophesy again concerning many peoples and nations and tongues and kings. Pretty simple, right? Richly complex. Simple, I wouldn't say so. So let's start again in chapter 1. And I saw a strong messenger coming down from the heaven, robed in a cloud, and a rainbow on his head, and his face was like the sun, and his feet were like columns of fire. A strong messenger, not just an angel, a strong angel, an archangel, if you will. Okay, so this archangel comes down from heaven to John, and he's robed in a cloud. Clouds equate to judgment all throughout the word. Behold, I come swiftly, coming on the clouds. And a rainbow is on his head. This rainbow is reminiscent of the rainbow covenant. Genesis 9, verses 12 through 17. Noah. You know, everybody knows Noah from Vacation Bible School and Sunday School. But this imagery here, in Revelation, the last book of the Bible, harkens all the way back to Genesis chapter 9. And so if we start in Genesis chapter 9, verse 12. And Elohim said, This is the sign of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living being that is with you for all generations to come. I shall set my rainbow in the cloud, and it shall be for the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. And it shall be when I bring a cloud over the earth, judgment, that the rainbow shall be seen in the cloud. And this was important for context at the time of Noah, because at the time of Noah, when the flood came, it had not yet rained on the earth. That's why Noah was considered crazy when he said, Hey, we got to build a boat and get in it because it's going to rain. And everybody else was like, What do you mean rain? It doesn't do that here. And he's like, Yeah, but it's coming. Well, now, think about the PTSD, the trauma of seeing clouds coming because it had never rained. And then when it did, it destroyed the earth. And so Yah said, Hey, next time you see a cloud, I'm going to put a rainbow in it so that you remember my covenant between me and you, that I'm not going to destroy you with these clouds. And it shall be when I bring a cloud over the earth that the rainbow shall be seen in the cloud, and I shall remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living being of all flesh, and never again let the waters become a flood to destroy all the earth. And the rainbow shall be in the cloud, and I shall see it, Yahuwah shall see it, to remember the everlasting covenant between Elohim and every living being of all flesh that is on the earth. And Elohim said to Noah, This is the sign of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. So this rainbow is this remembrance of this covenant that harkens all the way back to Noah. Oh, I thought that stuff was done away with. We're under the new covenant. Well, covenants stack. They do not replace one another. Covenants stack on top of one another. They're agreements and addendums to the agreement. So, this messenger coming down is robed in a cloud of Yah's judgment, but he has this rainbow on his head. A covenant between Yah and his people. And his face was like the sun. Remember Moshe when he was on the mountain, which is interesting. Moshe in Hebrew, side note, Moshe is an archetype of Mashiach. Moshe being Moses, translated as Moses into English. But in the Hebrew, it's Moshe, which is the Mem, the Sheen, and the Het. M-S-H, if you will. Like Mashiach. Moshe, Messiah, Mashiach. Coincidence, I'm sure. He's an archetype. In fact, Moshe says in Deuteronomy, hey, there's one coming like me. Hear his words. It's Yeshua. Moshe is prophesying of Yeshua, of the Messiah. And Messiah rebukes the Pharisees and says, because you don't know Moshe, you don't know me. Mashiach, Moshe, Mem, Shin, Het. Coincidence, I'm sure. Just a little coincidence. And so remember when Moshe was up on the mountain receiving the law, the Torah, for 40 days. When he comes back down off the mountain, the children of Israel say to him, yo, dude, you're glowing. We can't look at you. If you could go ahead and put a veil on, that would be great, because your face right now is like looking into a spotlight, because he had been in the presence of Yah. And so has this strong messenger, this chief angel here. He has been in the presence of Yah, and he's radiating. His face is like the sun, and his feet were like a column of fire. Remember the columns of fire, the column of fire that led the children of Israel out of Egypt? Yeah. Pillar of smoke, column of fire. So, this angel has got it going on. Who is this angel? Daniel chapter 12. Let's go to Daniel chapter 12, and we're going to read a goodly portion of Daniel chapter 12, because it greatly informs Revelation chapter 10. So, hold a finger or stick a page in Revelation chapter 10. Flip to Daniel chapter 12, roughly page 599 in the scriptures. And at that time, Michael and Gabriel. Michael, in traditional understanding of the hierarchy of angels, is the warrior angel. Coincidence? I think not. Look at everything that's going on in Revelation here. Now you've got Michael, the dude with the sword. Like the chief angel dude with the sword. Now at that time Michael shall stand up. At what time? This time that we're reading about in Revelation. Daniel's prophecy, Daniel's visions are now dovetailing, and they are intersecting into the timeline that John is experiencing, because Yah is incredible. Now at that time Michael shall stand up, the great head who is standing over the sons of your people, Elohim's people, Israel. Michael stands over the people of Israel. Praise Yah. How cool is that? And there shall be a time of distress, such as never was since there was a nation. In all the history of Israel, there was never this much distress. Yeah, tribulation. What we're reading about in Revelation chapter 10. And there shall be a time of distress, such as never was since there was a nation until that time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, every one who is found written in the book. Interesting. What book is that? If we go to Revelation chapter 21, verse 27, and there shall by no means enter into it, the New Jerusalem, whatever is unclean, neither anyone doing abomination and falsehood, oofda, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. And that is a direct correlation between Daniel chapter 12, verse 1, which we're reading now. And at that time your people shall be delivered, every one who is found written in the book. Now that means you can't do abominations and falsehoods and be written in the book of life. So, fix yourself if you're out of line. Walk in Yeshua's ways. Walk in Yah's ways. Not your pastor, your priest, your rabbi, your bishop, who cares? Not men. We don't walk in the doctrines of men. We read the book and do what it says. Because at the end of an age, you want to be in the Lamb's book of life. And how do you get there? Matthew, Gospel of Matthew, chapter 19, verse 17. If you wish to enter into life, guard the commands. Revelation 14, verse 12. Here is the endurance of the saints, those that have a testimony of Yeshua HaMashiach and keep the commands. If we look again at Revelation 22, verse 14, blessed are those, this is the last book of the Bible, the last chapter of the Bible, 7 verses from the last word in the Bible. Blessed are those doing his, Yahuwah or Elohim's, commands, so that the authority shall be theirs unto the tree of life, and to enter through the gates into the city. And there shall by no means enter into it, the city, whatever is unclean, neither anyone doing abomination and falsehood, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. Blessed are those doing his commands, so that the authority shall be theirs unto the tree of life, and to enter through the gates into the city. If you wish to enter into life, guard the commands. Matthew 19, verse 17. See it with your own eyeballs. Second witness there, John 12, verse 50. So, back to Daniel chapter 12. And at that time your people shall be delivered, every one who is found written in the book. And many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth wake up, some to everlasting life, and some to reproaches, everlasting abhorrence. Yeah, this is the judgment that comes. And the Yehudim, the Jews, believe in a resurrection. Christians believe in a resurrection, but they don't quite understand what they're believing in. See, every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess, all of them, when Yeshua returns. You've been dead 9,000 years, or however long you think the earth has been around. Cool. You are going to come up out of the dirt, and every human body that ever had a soul inhabiting it will confess. Every knee will bow. And at that time you will be judged. You'll be judged. And if you're found fitting, you will enter into the city, unto the tree of life. And if not, you go to Sheol, hell, Gehenna, pick your words, which is eternal separation from Yah. And again, if you look at Revelation 22, verse 12, and see, I, Yeshua HaMashiach, am coming speedily, and my reward is with me to give to each according to his work. Yeah, well, that sounds like works-based theology. It also sounds like a direct quote from Yeshua at the end of the book, the last chapter of the book. And see, I am coming speedily, and my reward is with me. What reward is that? Eternal life. To give to each according to his work. What does Yeshua say? You shall know them by their fruits. You shall know them by their works. You shall know them by what they do. So this everlasting life, right? Daniel 12, verse 2. And many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth wake up, some to everlasting life, and some to reproaches, everlasting abhorrence. And those who have insight shall shine like the brightness of the expanse of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. But you, Daniel, hide the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Remember that. We're going to come back to that. Many shall diligently search, and knowledge shall increase. Then I, Daniel, looked, and I saw 2 others standing, one on the bank of the river and one on the other bank of the river. I think this is Judah and Israel, these 2 others, because of the Hebrews 8 renewed covenant. But that's just my opinion. And one said to the man dressed in linen, who was above the waters in the river, how long until the end of these wonders? And I heard the man dressed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, and he held up his right hand and his left hand to the heavens, and swore by him who lives forever, by Yahuwah, that it would be for an appointed time, appointed times, and half a time. A time, 2 times, and half a time, 3.5 years. Also, appointed times. If you don't know what appointed times means, Leviticus 23, the Moedim, the appointed times. So it will be for 1 cycle of appointed times, and appointed times, 2 cycles of an appointed times, and half a time. It goes all the way back to Genesis chapter 1. The reason we have the moon and the sun and the stars is for signs and appointed times, What are the appointed times? Leviticus 23. Why is that important? Here, Daniel chapter. Not only is it important to do the appointed times for obedience unto Yah, because you shall know them by their works. Right? If you love me, keep my commands, says Messiah. I and my Father are one. I wonder whose commands we're supposed to keep. You know, almost as if it says again in Revelation 22 verse 14, blessed are those doing his commands, so that the authority shall be theirs unto the tree of life. What's the tree of life? It's Israel. It's what you're grafted into. Read Romans, read Galatians. And to enter through the gates into the city. So, these appointed times that Daniel's talking about, if you don't know what the appointed times are, how are you supposed to have any idea what the timeline is? Leviticus chapter 23, the Moedim, the appointed times, which you are supposed to do. James, the brother of Yeshua, admonishes us, be not just hearers of the word, but doers also. The Torah, walking with Yeshua, is something you do. It's not something you think about, not something you talk about, not something you feel about. It's something you do, because behold, I come speedily to give to each man according to his works, to what he did. Not what he thought, not what he felt, not what he talked about, what he did. I know, I'm making a lot of hay out of this. Shut up and read the book, T. Roger that. Verse 7, Daniel 12:7, and I heard the man dressed in linen who was above the waters of the river, and he held up his right hand and his left hand, the blessing and the curse, by the way, and swore by him who lives forever that it would be for an appointed time, appointed times, and half a time. And when they have ended scattering the power of the set-apart people, the saints, Revelation 14, verse 12, here's the endurance of the saints, those that have a testimony of Yeshua HaMashiach and keep the commands, then all these shall be complete. And I heard, but I did not understand. So I said to my master, what is the latter end of these matters? And he said, go, Daniel, for the words are hidden and sealed to the time of the end. Many shall be cleansed and made white and refined. You see that in Revelation. We already saw that earlier in Revelation, and then later in Revelation 19. Clothed and refined and made white, clothed in white robes. We've seen that in Revelation chapter 7 with the sealing. And none of the wrong shall understand, but those who have insight shall understand. And from the time which is continual is taken away, the daily offering, and the abomination that lays waste is set up, 1,290 days. Blessed is he who is waiting earnestly and comes to the 1,335 days. But you, go your way till the end, and rest, and arise to your lot at the end of days. Now, the verses 11 and 12, the 1,290 days versus 1,335 days, that's an entirely different teaching. And we'll probably touch on that later in Revelation. So the point here of Daniel chapter 12, at least in this current context in Revelation 10, is that this angel is the angel Michael, who is the angel of the Father's people of Israel. Okay, so back 23 minutes in, and we're on Revelation 10, chapter 10, verse 1. And I saw another strong messenger coming down from the heaven, robed in a cloud, with a rainbow on his head, and his face was like the sun, and his feet were a column of fire. This angel is the angel Michael. And he had in his hand a little book, or a little scroll opened, and he placed his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land, because he has authority over all of it, the land, the sea, the earth, over all of it. And so his span of control, if you will, the area where he is imposing his authority is on the sea and the land, all of it. And he cried out with a loud voice, as when a lion roars. The lion of Judah. Who's from Judah? Lots of people. But how about King David? Who is Mashiach prophesied to be? Who is Messiah? Jesus the Christ, if you prefer that terminology. Who is he prophesied to be? How do we know that he is the Messiah? Because of the Old Testament prophecies of Mashiach ben David, Messiah of David, of the throne, the line of David, the righteous king in the line of David. All that comes from the house of Judah, the lion. Cried with a loud voice as when a lion roars. And when he cried out, 7 thunders spoke their sounds. Boom, 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 boom. This guy's like, I don't know what he's saying, but as he erupts with this, this roar, the heavens and the earth start shaking, right? And 7 thunders spoke their sounds. Now, remember that we're in an allegorical mode, metaphorical mode here, because this is a vision. And when the 7 thunders spoke their sounds, I was about to write, but I heard a voice from the heavens saying to me, this is Yah speaking, seal up what the 7 thunders spoke and do not write them. So John is the reporter on the scene with his little notebook, spiral-bound notebook, and his pen, because he is prophesying. He's writing this down for us. But Yah says to him, homie, this you don't write down. Seal this up. This, what these 7 thunders just said, and by the way, these 7 thunders are the voices of Yah. We're going to look at that in a moment. What I just said, when this angel, when Michael cried out, and remember, Michael and Yah are homeboys. Michael is glowing because of the amount of time that he spends with Yah, okay? So Michael cries out. And what happens? The Father reciprocates with these 7 thunders. And John is trying to write all this down, and Yah says, negative. No, seal this part up. Why would he do that? Why would Yah do that? Well, for a bit of comfort, we can turn to Deuteronomy 29. There's some proof text there. Or maybe the question is it a deal breaker that we don't know what Yah said here? Yet. I believe we will know when we are in the midst of this. But as of right now, we don't know. Deuteronomy 29:29. The secret matters belong to Yahuwah or Elohim. But what is revealed, John the Revelator, Revelations, but what is revealed, this is Moses speaking in the Old Testament in the last book of the Torah, or the Pentateuch if you're more into Greek terminology. This is Moses speaking. The secret matters belong to Yahuwah or Elohim, but what is revealed, revelation, belongs to us and to our children forever, to do all the words, capital W, words of this Torah. So while it would be super cool to know exactly what Yah said right here, we don't currently know because per the words of Moshe, we have what we need to do and to be obedient. Yah's not going to create an expectation for us and not give us enough information and understanding for us to live up to that expectation. Yeshua himself says, come to me all ye who labor, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. Right? Yeshua was the Word made flesh. What was the Word? What is the words of these Torah in Deuteronomy 29? The written word as we have it right here, the Bible, the Torah, and the Word made flesh to do all the words of this Torah. And words of this Torah per Moshe. How interesting that Yeshua, the capital W word, because that's an uppercase W word, is indicative of Yeshua. Yeshua embodied the Torah. Matthew 5 verse 17. I come not to destroy the Torah or the prophets, but to complete it. Pleira'u. And that Greek word complete got a lot of people jammed up. Pleira'u means to embody. I come not to destroy the Torah or the prophets, but to embody it. Next verse, because truly, truly I say unto you, not one yod, not one tittle shall fall from the Torah till all be done. By the way, the yod looks like a Y, a little outstretched hand, and it's one of the smallest marks in Hebrew, smallest pictograph letters in Hebrew. But it is that outstretched hand that is always indicative throughout the entirety of the Old Testament. It's always been understood by the scribes and by the Torah scholars and the yeshiva schools. That was always indicative of Mashiach, of Messiah, that outstretched hand. And so when Yeshua is saying, not one yod, not one tittle shall fall from the Torah till all be done, why would you take the yods out? That's him. The tittle are the tiniest little marks, the tiniest little details. None of that shall fall from the Torah till all be done. And I got news for you. Not all has been done yet. And we're reading the end of the book. We're reading Revelation, the end of the book, where all is going to be done. And what happens? They're still keeping the Torah. A prerequisite for getting into the city after the entire world is destroyed is that you have to guard the commands. What are those? The Torah. And if you say, well, I guard Jesus' commands, love God and love your neighbor. Cool. How do you do that? That's called Torah. Those are the two prime directives. Master, master, rabbi, rabbi. What is the greatest command in all the Torah is the question. And he answers them. The first is you shall love the Lord your God, Yahuwah your Elohim, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, with all your strength, with everything you got. Deuteronomy 6, verse 5, Torah. And the second is like unto it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Leviticus 19, verse 18, Torah. And on this hangs all the Torah and the prophets. It does not negate the Torah and the prophets. He does not say, and this negates the Torah and the prophets. He says, on this hangs all the Torah and the prophets. Because those are the two prime directives. Love Yah with everything you have. Love your neighbor as yourself. How do we do that? You go to the 10 commands, the 10 commandments. There is no God but God. That's loving God with everything you got. Make no graven images. That's loving God with everything you got. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. That's loving God with everything you got. Right? Do not steal. That's loving your neighbor as yourself. Do not adulterate. That's loving your neighbor as yourself. Do not murder. That's loving your neighbor as yourself. Okay? So 2 prime directives, then the 10 commands, and then the 613 Old Testament Torah, the commands, the laws, the right rulings. Torah means instruction, by the way. And see, this is the user manual for people. If you don't read the user manual for people, you're probably going to wreck the equipment. Right? And then when the equipment's broken and it's not working and you're wondering why, you're crying out to the manufacturer, to God, saying, how come things aren't working? And he's like, dummy, did you read the user manual? I loved you enough to write down the user manual for you. If you would read it, you would know how to operate the equipment without breaking it. And so then you have the details of the user manual, the 613 commands. Those are like, click here for more help. 2 prime directives, 10 commands, 613 Torah. Click here for more help. And a third of them are for the high priest in the temple. Well, Yeshua is the high priest and we don't have a physical temple, so don't worry about that. Many of them, 100 plus, are for women. I'm not a woman. I don't got to worry about that. When all is said and done, it comes down to about 200 or so laws. Come to me, all ye who labor. My yoke is easy, my burden is light. If you live in America, you are under 4 million plus different laws right now. And yet you want to bitch and complain about 200? Okay. 200 of God's laws? Oh, that was nailed to the cross. Colossians 2:14. Negative. Go read Colossians 2:14. What was nailed to the cross, and by the way, it's staros, or stake. And don't get me into Babylonian abominations right now. What was nailed to the stake was doctrines and dogmas of men, not the Torah. Because if you understand the Old Testament, if you have a Messiah who does away with the Torah, that Messiah is not biblical. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, Pauline doctrine makes it absolutely clear that the man of lawlessness is the Antichrist, and that lawlessness, not doing the Torah, is the working of Satan. So chew on that for a hot minute. Yes, that's what the Bible says out of the mouth of Paul, Shaul of Tarsus, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Go read it with your own eyeballs. Back to Revelation chapter 10. And he cried with a loud voice as when a lion roars, and when he cried out, 7 thunders spoke their sounds, and when the 7 thunders spoke their sounds, I was about to write, but I heard a voice from the heavens saying, seal up what the 7 thunders spoke, and do not write them. Yes, sir. What did that sound like? Because that had to be awesome. Psalms 29. Yes, I know. Also in the Old Testament. You should know where Psalms is. You should be in your Bible so frequently that you don't have to guess where chapters are. Books are. Like you just, automaticity, familiarity. Psalms 29, page 661. Ascribe to Yahuwah, O you sons of the mighty, ascribe to Yahuwah esteem and strength. Ascribe to Yahuwah the esteem of his name. Bow yourselves to Yahuwah in splendor of set apartness. The voice of Yahuwah is over the waters. Where's Michael standing right now? 1 foot on the land, 1 foot on the waters. What are we hearing? 7 thunders. The voice of Yahuwah is over the waters. The Elohim of esteem, of glory, thunders. Yahuwah is over many waters. The voice of Yahuwah is with power. The voice of Yahuwah is with greatness. The voice of Yahuwah is breaking the cedars. Yahuwah is breaking the cedars of Lebanon in pieces. He makes them skip like a calf, Lebanon and Syrian like a young wild ox. The voice of Yahuwah cuts through the flames of fire. The voice of Yahuwah shakes the wilderness. Yahuwah shakes the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of Yahuwah makes the deer give birth. He strips the forest bare, and in his Hakal, his temple, everyone says, glory, esteem. Yahuwah sat enthroned at the flood, and Yahuwah sits as sovereign forever. Yahuwah gives strength to his people. Yahuwah blesses his people with peace. I'd just like to point out in Psalms chapter 29, the phrase, the voice of Yahuwah appears 7 times. The voice of Yahuwah. And then we go to Revelation chapter 10, verse 4. And when the 7 thunders spoke their sound, the 7 voices of Yahuwah, destroying the cedars of Lebanon and cutting through fire and over the waters, and the 7 thunders making their sound. The voice of Yahuwah. And so John hears this and he's not allowed to write it down, and we don't know what it says because Deuteronomy 29:29, the secret matters belong to Elohim. And that's okay. We have what we need to be obedient. Verse 5. And the messenger whom I saw standing, Michael, on the sea and on the land, lifted up his right hand to the heaven. And he swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created the heaven and what is in it, and the earth is what is in it, and the sea and what is in it, that there shall be no further delay. Now remember, we're delayed right now. We are in between the 6th trumpet and the 7th trumpet. And so Michael is lifting his right hand to the heaven. And we're going to see here that this is swearing an oath that there will be no delay, no further delay. That 7th trumpet is coming. But in the days of the sounding of the 7th trumpet, when he is about to sound, the secret of Elohim shall be ended, as he declared to his servants, the prophets. And we're going to look at that too. But first, let's go to lifted up his right hand. What exactly does that mean? Bereshit, Genesis. Wow, we're in Revelation, and in order to understand Revelation, we got to flip all the way back to Genesis, almost as if this whole book was written as one continuous love letter from the Father to his people, not the Old Testament for the Jews and the New Testament for the Christians, almost as if Revelation 14 verse 12, here is the endurance of the saints, those that have a testimony of Yeshua HaMashiach, New Testament, and keep the commands, Old Testament. Yeah, I know. I don't make this stuff up. It's what does the Bible say. So, Bereshit, Genesis 14. That's all the way in the beginning of the book, by the way. I know a lot of people don't spend much time there. 14. Very cool story here in Genesis 14. 14 verse 22. But Abraham said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted my hand to Yahuwah, the Most High, El, possessor of the heavens and the earth, not to take a thread or a sandal strap or whatever is yours, lest you should say, I have made Abraham rich. Now, how did he lift his hand here? This is after Abraham's military action in the valley of Siddim, where Abraham kicked a bunch of tail with 318 men, trained men of his own house. And under the context of, hey, I know I just wrecked you, but I swear not to take anything that isn't mine from you. And who's he swearing to? I have lifted my hand to Yahuwah, the Most High, Elohim, possessor of the heavens and the earth. Badass. What about another witness here? How about Deuteronomy chapter 32? Moshe speaking. So remember, Abraham lifts his hand to swear after the valley of Siddim, where he, as a righteous king, slaughtered a whole bunch of unrighteous men. Oh yeah, and Yah loved him. He loved him so much that he made him the progenitor of the Father's chosen people. Well, my God would never do that. You really, really, really need to read your Bible. Because what about Moshe, the most powerful prophet to have ever walked the face of the earth until the time of Yeshua? Now we go to Deuteronomy 32. We could start at verse 39. Moshe speaking. See now, I am he, and there is no Elohim besides me. I put to death, and I make alive. I have wounded, and I heal. And from my hand no one delivers. For I lift my hand to the heavens, and shall say, as I live forever, if I have sharpened my flashing sword, and my hand takes hold on judgment, I shall return vengeance to my enemies, and repay those who hate me. I make my arrows drunk with blood, and my sword devours flesh, with the blood of the slain and the captives, from the long-haired enemy chiefs. O nations, you don't want to be the nations. O nations, acclaim his people, for he avenges the blood of his servants and returns vengeance to his adversaries, and shall pardon his land and his people. You seeing a pattern here of raising your hand to Yah, to swear an oath, and the resultant activities therein. So here you have Michael in Revelation 10 raising his hand, swearing right before what? That seventh trumpet, the big right hook. And he swears, and he swore by, and how do we know he's swearing? It says it right here, and he swore by him, Yahuwah, who lives forever and ever. We read this in Daniel 12 earlier, who created the heaven and what is in it, and the earth and what is in it, and the sea and what is in it. And there shall be no further delay. So this space in between the sixth trumpet and Revelation 9 and the seventh trumpet yet to come, this delay is ending. This opportunity for people to repent is over. And now we're going into the hardcore stuff. But in the days of the sounding of the seventh messenger, that seventh trumpet, when he is about to sound, the secret of Elohim shall be ended, as he declared to his servants and the prophets. Now, what is this secret of Elohim? Yahuwah has many secrets. For if we could fathom him, he wouldn't be worth worshiping, would he? We would be more powerful than he would. Then we would be the Elohim in this situation, not him. That would be out of order. That would be unbalanced. Now, he declared to his prophets the secret of Elohim, and I was led by the Spirit to Isaiah 45 this morning in context to that statement. So if we go to Isaiah 45, we can see some characteristics of Yahuwah, the Lord our God. Page 450 in the scriptures. Thus said Yahuwah to his anointed, to Koresh, whose right hand I have strengthened, to subdue nations before him, and ungird the loins of kings, to open before him the double doors, so that the gates are not shut. I go before you, and make the crooked places straight. I shatter the gates of bronze, and cut down the bars of iron. I shall give you the treasures of darkness, and hoarded wealth of the secret places, so you know that I, Yahuwah, who are calling you by your name, am the Elohim of Israel. Let's pause right there. The Elohim of Israel. If you are a Gentile believer grafted into the tree of life, that is Israel. And there is one Torah, one, for the Israelite and the sojourner within their gates. If you wish to enter into life, guard the commands. Matthew 19, verse 17. And I don't care if nobody has ever told you this before. I'm telling you now. Now you know. And it does not matter what your pastor, your priest, your rabbi, your bishop, your grandpa, your best friend, your men's group study, the books that you read have said to you thus far. This is what the Bible says. And at the end of an age, your grandpa, your priest, your pastor, your rabbi, your best friend will not be there judging you. Yah will. And the only way you make it out alive is by the blood of Yeshua. And once you know, which now you have no excuse, now you know, once you know that you are supposed to walk in the commands, that is accounted to you as righteousness. Luke 1 verse 6, blamelessly walking in the commands of Yah, which makes you Israel. And you want to be Israel because if you're not Israel, if you're the nations, you get destroyed. You want to be Israel. Yahweh is the Elohim of Israel. For the sake of Jacob my servant and of Israel my chosen, I also call you by your name. I give you a title, though you have not known me. Being grafted in, being brought into the family. I am Yahuwah, there is none else. There is no Elohim besides me. I gird you, though you have not known me, so that you know from the rising of the sun to its setting that there is none but me. I am Yahuwah, and there is none else. Forming light and creating darkness, making peace and creating evil, I, Yahuwah, do all of these. Rain down, O heavens, from above, and let clouds pour down righteousness. Let the earth open them. Let them bring forth deliverance, and let righteousness spring up together. I, Yahuwah, have created it. Woe to him who strives with his maker. A potsherd with the potsherds of the earth. Does clay say to him who forms it, what are you making? Or your handiwork say, he has no hands. Woe to him who says to his father, what are you bringing forth? Or to the woman, what are you laboring over? Thus said Yahuwah, the set-apart one of Israel and his maker. Do you ask me about my sons, what is to come? And about the work of my hands, do you command me? I have made the earth and created man on it. My hands have stretched out over the heavens, and all their host I have commanded. I have stirred up in righteousness, and all the ways I make straight. He builds my city and lets my exiles go. This is the set-apart one of Israel, Mashiach. I have stirred him up in righteousness, and all his ways I make straight. He builds my city and lets my exiles go. Not for price nor reward, declares Yahuwah of hosts. Thus said Yahuwah, the labor of Mitzrayim of Egypt, and merchandise of Cush, and of the Sebaites, men of size, come over to you, and they are not yours. They walk behind you. They come over in chains, and they bow down to you. They make supplication to you, saying, indeed, Elohim is in you, and there is none else, no mighty one. Truly you are Elohim, who hide yourself, O Elohim of Israel, Savior. They shall be put to shame and even be humiliated, all of them. The makers of idols shall go away together in humiliation. Israel shall be saved by Yahuwah with an everlasting deliverance. You are not to be ashamed nor hurt forever and ever. For thus said Yahuwah, creator of the heavens, he is Elohim, former of the earth and its maker. He established it. He did not create it to be empty. He formed it to be inhabited. I am Yahuwah, and there is none else. I have not spoken in secret in a dark place of the earth. I have not said to the seed of Jacob, seek me in vain. I am Yahuwah speaking righteousness, declaring matters that are straight. Gather yourselves and come. Draw near together, you who have escaped from the nations. No knowledge have they who are lifting up the wood of their carved image. Oof. And pray to a mighty one that does not save. Declare and bring near. Let them even take counsel together. Who has announced this from old? Who has declared it from time? Is it not I, Yahuwah? Is there no mighty one besides me, a righteous Elohim and a Savior? There is none besides me. Turn to me and be saved, all you ends of the earth, for I am Elohim and there is none else. I have sworn by myself, a word has gone out of my mouth in righteousness and shall not return, so that to me every knee shall bow, so that to me every tongue shall swear. One shall say, only in Yahuwah do I have righteousness and strength. He comes to him, and all these displeased with him shall be put to shame. In Yahuwah all the seed of Israel shall be declared right and boast. And a second witness there is Hebrews chapter 8, the renewed covenant. Verse 11, and they shall by no means teach each one his neighbor and each one his brother, saying, Know Yahuwah, because they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, because I, Yahuwah, shall forgive their unrighteousness, and their sins and their lawlessness I shall no longer remember. So back to Revelation 10. Verse 7, but in the days of the sounding of the seventh messenger, when he is about to sound, the secret of Elohim shall also be ended, as he declared to his servants the prophets. Everyone will know. All knees will bow. All tongues shall confess. Everyone in the entire world will know that there is one Elohim, that it is Yahuwah, that he is the Savior, Yah made flesh, Yeshua HaMashiach, the set apart one of Israel, All of the guesswork, all of the pontification will be gone in an instant. How? Why? These seven thunders spoke. And they're undeniable. I imagine like an atomic bomb going off and the pressure wave, just that blast all throughout the earth. Trees being ripped, as we saw in Psalms 29. The waters being shaken. Fires being blown. And everybody will know that he is Yah. That secret will be removed. Verse 8. And the voice which I heard out of the heaven spoke to me again, Yahuwah, saying, Go take the little book, which is opened in the hand of the messenger standing on the sea of the earth. So John... And I went to the messenger and said to him, Give me the little book. John, human John in the midst of this vision, is walking up to Michael, a strong messenger, robed in a cloud with a rainbow on his head, his face like the sun, and his feet columns of fire. And John's like, Give me the little book. Yah said so. That takes some gumption. It's awesome. And I went to the messenger and said to him, Give me the little book. And he said to me, Take it and eat it. And it shall make your stomach bitter, but it shall be as sweet as honey in your mouth. Now, what is the little book? What is it? Seal up the seven thunders spoke and do not write them. What is the little book? It is the word of Yah. Take it and eat it, and it shall make your stomach bitter, but it shall be as sweet as honey in your mouth. And I took the little book out of the messenger's hand and ate it, and it was sweet as honey in my mouth, but when I had eaten it, my stomach was made bitter. Now, a couple things I want to look at here. Oh, kicking the tripod again. The first is James 1:21. Hebrews. Come on, fingers, don't fail me now. Hebrews, Jacob, James 1:21. Therefore, put away all filthiness and overflow of evil, and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your lives. Yeah. The implanted word. And become doers of the word, not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. Because if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks at his natural face in the mirror, for he looks at himself and goes away and immediately forgets what he was like. But he that looked into the perfect Torah, that of freedom, and continues in it, not becoming a hearer that forgets, but a doer of work, this one shall be blessed in his doing of the Torah. the brother of the brother of Jesus, James, the just, in the New Testament, be not hearers of the word, but doers also. The perfect Torah of freedom, the implanted word, the word of Yah, this little scroll that John receives and eats, the implanted word. And now Ezekiel, or as the Yahudim like to say, Yechezkel, Ezekiel 3:3. You should know where Ezekiel is too. You got Isaiah, then Jeremiah, and then Ezekiel. Ezekiel 3 verse 3. Well, we'll just read 3. Page 529. So Ezekiel's having a vision, which also dovetails into the vision that John is having now. Why? We've looked at Daniel and Ezekiel and John, because in the mouths of 2 or 3 let a thing be established. Where have we heard that before? Turns out it's Torah. It's also taught by Yeshua in Matthew chapter 18, because Yeshua embodied the Torah. Imagine that. And he, Yahweh, the Lord our God, said to me, Son of man, eat what you find, eat this scroll, and go and speak to the house of Israel. And I opened my mouth, and he fed me the scroll. And he said to me, Son of man, feed your stomach and fill your stomach with this scroll that I am giving you. And I ate it, and it was sweet as honey in my mouth. And he said to me, Son of man, go to the house of Israel, and you shall speak to them with my words. For you are not sent to a people of foreign speech in a difficult language, but to the house of Israel. Now, important to understand, 2 houses at this point. There's the house of Judah and the house of Israel. Judah being the tribe of Judah, the tribe of Benjamin, and part of most of the Levites. The house of Israel was everybody else. And Israel had fallen away, false gods. So, Ezekiel receives the word of Yah on this scroll, the implanted word, and he's sent to go prophesy to Israel that is whoring against Yah with their abominations and their idolatries. And Ezekiel is blessed in that the people that he's going to talk to understand his language and his ways and his customs. Not to many people of foreign speech or a difficult language whose words you do not understand, right? For you are not sent to a people of foreign speech and a difficult language, but to the house of Israel. But to the house of Israel is going to refuse to listen to you, for they refuse to listen to me. For all the house of Israel are hard of head and hard of heart. And see, I shall make your face as hard as their faces, and your forehead as hard as their forehead. I'm going to make you as stubborn as they are, bro. Do not be afraid of them, nor be discouraged at their looks, for they are a rebellious house. And so this word, this implanted word of Yah, this little book, is given to Yah's prophets to go and speak, to prophesy to a rebellious house. And I went to the messenger and said to him, give me the little book. We're back in Revelation 10, verse 9. And he said to me, take and eat it, and it shall make your stomach bitter, but it shall be as sweet as honey in your mouth. You think about this word. When you receive the word of Yah, it begins its sweetness and light and honey. It's wonderful. But then the more you understand bitterness, the more you understand the word, it becomes, as Paul says, and what's the word? The word made flesh, the Torah. I do not sin but by the law. I do not sin but by the Torah. This is the second use of the law. Calvin, Luther, others, early, not even early, but, figures in the church. There's 3 uses of the Torah. And you got to be very careful with basically these seminary-style teachings, because it's men talking about what men said, not men talking about what the Bible said in many, many cases. And that's doctrines and dogma. And that's what was nailed to the cross in Colossians 2:14. But Calvin talks about the 3 uses. Not Calvin. Luther talks about the 3 uses of the law. The first use of the law is the civic use of the law. Thou shalt not murder. Well, we use that in society, right? That's Torah. The next is as a mirror, as Paul talks about in Ephesians, Galatians, Romans. I do not sin but by the law. It's a mirror to examine oneself against. It becomes the standard to check your actions and your heart condition against. And the third use of the law is in your everyday life in practice. Be not just hearers of the word, but doers also. Do the word. Do it. The perfect Torah of freedom, says James, the brother of Jesus. Do it. Those are the three uses of the law. And so as you receive this word into you, it can then become bitter because you're using this word as a mirror to judge yourself against, to see where you're falling short. I knew not sin but by the law, the second use of the law. And that's a bitter process until you fix yourself by the blood of the Lamb and the word of your testimony and the power of Yah, who loves his children, by the way. He loves us enough that he gave us a book, a user manual for people that we can judge ourselves against, so that because sin cannot exist in the presence of Yah, and sin, 1 John 3 verse 4, the guy who wrote Revelation here also said in 1 John chapter 3 verse 4 that sin is lawlessness. So you got to not do the lawless stuff so that you can exist in the presence of Yah. And he loves us enough to tell us how to do it, and he loved us enough to become Yah made flesh, Yeshua HaMashiach, to walk that out for us so that we have an example as how to live. 1 Peter 2:21, for this you were called, that Messiah, having suffered for your sins, that you might walk in his steps. Do what he did. Now this little book is also bitter here, because for us, for Israel, it's honey. It's honey, man. We saw that in Isaiah 45. No harm's going to come to us. Now, it doesn't mean it's not going to be crazy, right? But think about the bitterness of all these people who are going to die. And all these people who think they're covered by the blood of the Lamb, but aren't. Matthew 7:21, for truly, truly, I'll say unto you, depart from me, you who work lawlessness. I never knew you. Yeshua, Jesus says, get away from me, you lawless people, you Torahlessness people. I never knew you. Yes, look that up in your eyeball, with your own eyeballs in your own Bible. Matthew 7:21 through 24. And that's going to be very bitter. Messiah himself says there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And then finally, Revelation 10 verse 11, and he said to me, he. Well, it's not a capital H he, so the only other he we've got here is Michael. And Michael said to him, you have to prophesy again concerning many peoples and nations and tongues and kings. You need this implanted word. Why? Well, why did Ezekiel get it? To go rebuke the house of Israel. Why did John get it? This implanted word. You have to prophesy again concerning many peoples and nations and tongues and kings. And so, what happened to John after Patmos? Now remember, John is exiled to the Isle of Patmos currently. Tertullian, early church historian, perpetuated a tradition that John, because of his heresies, and in the Roman Empire it was considered heresy to prophesy. It was equated to sorcery and magic. And so John was thrown into a vat of boiling oil. And when John emerged from the vat of boiling oil unscathed, everybody kind of looked around and was like, well, that's crazy. He was unharmed. Put him on the Isle of Patmos. And so they did. Now he's on Patmos, and he's an older man at this time. He's about 60 years old on the Isle of Patmos. Then what happens? He has this vision on the Isle of Patmos. From an article online here, it says, John's later years. Traditions say that John ministered in the Roman province of Asia, modern Turkey, and its leading city, Ephesus. His move there may have come as a result of the outbreak of the Jewish War in AD 66. In Asia, he apparently assumed the responsibility of an overseer to the area churches. Sometime during the reign of Domitian, AD 81 to 96, John was exiled in the island of Patmos during a time of religious persecution. It's here that he wrote the book of Revelation. The elderly John was allowed to return to Ephesus after Nerva's ascension to the throne in 96. One ancient historian tells us that John had an active ministry among the Christians of Ephesus after his exile. He probably died in Ephesus before the end of the century. If John had been about 25 when Yeshua died around 30 AD, he would have been nearly 60 when he arrived in Ephesus. If he died shortly after his return from Patmos, he would have been more than 90 years old. This would have made him the last of the original apostles to die. The point here being that after his time in Patmos in exile, he returned to Ephesus and he continued to prophesy and teach. He had an active ministry among the Christians in Ephesus after his exile. And so the historicity of John the Revelator dovetails into the word of Yah here in Revelation chapter 10. And he said to me, "You have to prophesy again concerning many peoples and nations and tongues and kings." And it turns out John did that. That is Revelation chapter 10. Thank you all for hanging with me. 11 verses, an hour and 6 minutes. Lots of biblical cross-reference. I hope you don't just listen to these. I hope you are reading your word and seeing it with your own eyeballs, because do not take my word for it. I will not be there with you at the end of an age. It'll be you and Yeshua and Yah. You are the priest of your home. Yeshua is the mediator in between you and Yah, not me. You are responsible for your relationship with Yah by the blood of Yeshua. I appreciate y'all. Shalom.